Good morning, Fiji, and welcome to the brunch on My TV. I'm Stanley Simpson.
And I'm Jacquee Speight. Thank you for joining us this morning. We hope you're having a great day so far, despite the rain and cold felt across most parts of the country since yesterday.
Well, the big announcement this morning was that school was closed.
At 2:30 a.m.
Announcement came at 2:30 in the morning. Last night, the ministry had given a clarification that schools should remain open.
Yes.
Principals, the school heads, to use their discretion. But then that statement came at 2:30. Many kids would have woke up, and some did turn up to school. We're seeing some reports.
Not a lot of parents would go online first thing in the morning
Yeah,
to
especially
see
in
this
the rural
update.
areas.
Yeah, or listen in to the radio first thing in the morning when they're bustling about trying to get the children ready.
And this is the issue I always think about. We can, unlike it seems the other countries, we can't seem to get our weather forecast right.
Right.
We're always getting this surprise weather phenomena,
it's
and
always,
then suddenly they tell us, "Oh yeah, please
a day before,
prepare caution." Sometimes hours before, or sometimes
Yes.
hours after.
Yeah.
So I checked. I asked La to check with the
Fiji Met.
and this was their response. They said because we wanted to get them on. It says, "Oh, the heavy rain we're experiencing is just normal."
That's not a normal heavy rain for
I
Suva.
know. I said it's not normal when school has to close.
That too.
So
Yes.
explain yourself.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand that. And he said there's nothing to talk about, but that he was open to discussing the El Nino system being felt across the country, but at another time. So
There's nothing to talk about, and yet schools have closed.
schools. I found that strange.
And civil servants
The
have been
point they were
advised.
making is that it's fine weather
Yeah.
in the West.
Yeah. No, that's.
We confirmed this morning. I think they've confirmed with some of the reporters, journalists in the West, and the journalists in the North. It's fine weather there, but Suva experiencing. I mean, it was a really strong wind.
It was a
and
stormy
heavy rain.
last
It was
night.
storm. It was a storm.
Very stormy last night. Took a while for me to go to sleep because I kept wondering, is there a tree that's going to come crashing through the house?
Yeah, I almost felt how those pre-cyclone conditions.
Yeah. Absolute
That's
same,
so-
but nice and cold.
Met Office, we need and Ministry of Education. We will be reaching out to you for more answers about what
I
happened.
hope they post an update, because while I was on my way to work, I went onto the Fiji Met social media page, Facebook, and there was still no update as of 7 a.m. this morning. They still hadn't posted anything, even though the advisories were going out on the Fiji government page.
Really strange. Strange. Anyway, we are joined today by the director of the Dialogue Fiji, Mr. Nilesh Lal, no stranger to the Brunch show. Good morning, Nilesh.
Very good morning, Stanley, and also good morning to
Good
you,
morning, Nilesh. Wonderful to have you back on the show with us again.
Yeah,
Jacquee,
thank you.
got everyone's attention last week.
Yes, you did. Very busy week for you. And like I said, you had all the most important, famous people in the country in one room last week.
Well, they decision makers.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we're certainly very pleased with the outcome of the event last week. It was a resounding success by, I would say, by every measure, and it definitely got into the room people that don't normally sit together and discuss those issues. I think what was absolutely important that the dialogue achieved was bringing about a much needed macroeconomic reality check, which was one of the key objectives of the dialogue anyway. So Fijians have begun talking about the economy. Of course, there are other things that were dominating the public discourse agenda before we did this dialogue. I'm glad that as a developing state for which the economy is the most important thing, impacting the lives of everyone, we have finally started talking about the economy.
Yeah. So I wanted to just get your what did you set out to achieve, bringing everyone together and in the dialogue? I mean, we will address some of the criticisms once they're on the front page from Ratu Mara, the Tuinayao, that just the talk fest. But what did you set out to achieve with the dialogue?
Well, I think that was quite clear from the program, the way it was designed. The first day, it was about doing a macroeconomic reality check.
Because just for our viewers, macroeconomic, what you're talking about there, the wider picture, so to speak, right?
Precisely. And this is important in a country like Fiji, where people's perceptions of the economy is driven by their perhaps their political affiliations or inclinations and so forth. And so, unfortunately, the economy has been used as a political football for so many years. And it's very important to get an objective picture of the economy. So the political narratives have been there, and that has been dominating sort of this discourse on the economy. But on day one, very deliberately, we put the technocrats in the limelight, and we got a very objective picture of how the economy actually was. Yeah. Apart from the technocrats, of course, we had civil society leaders, we had business leaders, other sectors that were there. So that set the ball rolling, that created, you know, the real, I mean, put it out to the people, the real picture. Apart from that,
so what was the real picture that they painted? You talk about technocrats, you're talking about officials from the civil service, from the IMF, World Bank?
Exactly. Yeah, so it would be the MDBs, or the multilateral development banks. We had all three multilateral agencies. I mean, the MDBs there. We, of course, had the Reserve Bank. We had officials from government ministries. We had civil society. We had economists. So all of those, these people with the actual technical expertise in the area, they would be considered technocrats. Now, apart from that, the second objective was, of course, to create discourse on the economy. I think we really succeeded it. I mean, even 1 week later, people cannot stop talking about the dialogue. So it was so important, because this country has been embroiled, the discourse has been about, you know, it has been dominated by the political events. It has been dominated by social scandals and so forth. And
well, in some ways, Nilesh, one would argue that it became dominated by that one panel. You know, it basically drowned out all the, you know, we didn't get to see much. That's why I wanted to ask, what did the technocrats say? You know, what's the state of the economy? What's the consensus, if there is one, from the technocrats about the situation that the country is facing? Because as soon as that panel came on, and we know which panel we're talking about, everything else went, you know, was overshadowed.
Well, that was to be expected when we put political heavyweights in the room, and that also is perhaps, you know, testament that is a testimony of how public discourse around in Fiji is shaped. It is very much shaped by the political leaders, but as far as we are concerned, we gave equal treatment to all the panels. So there were 3 panels altogether, and then there are also a number of breakout and other sessions that were held.
I saw the program. But you know, if you could sum it up, what was the stark assessment from the technocrats? What's the consensus, if there is one? The situation that Fiji is facing.
Yeah, I think there was consensus amongst the technocrats that Fiji's fiscal position is quite precarious at this point in time. We have, for instance, a very tiny operating surplus. Our revenue has grown, but at the same time, our expenditure has really gone through the roof. There are concerns about the expenditure mix of government. The fact that government expenditure is dominated, you know, by a very large margin by operational expenditure. The public debt is growing at an alarming rate in a known crisis here. So all of these things, I think there's a lot of consensus around this, including by the fiscal, the government's fiscal review committee chair. I think he also agreed with the view that Fiji was in a very vulnerable, very fragile state in as far as the fiscal position, and that is the financial position of the government is concerned.
So it was good discourse, I say, but you know, I'm seeing one of the criticism here before we go to break. We can address quite quickly the front page of the Fiji Times. Ratu Tevita, dialogue just a talk fest. Was it just a talk fest?
No, it wasn't. And I think that is quite apparent from the fact, the kind of attention that it has garnered. I think the fact that people can't even stop talking about the dialogue, and it's about a week since it's ended, proves the kind of impact that it had. Also, I mean, dialogues are, of course, about people getting together and talking. That is the primary modus operandi. But I think the criticism that has been made by Ratu Tevita Lekemba is also unfounded in many aspects. I think we can probably get around to discussing that later in detail. But what we've seen that people that were not in the room have suddenly become authorities on what should have happened. And this is based...
So what they said was much was said, but little of substance was offered. Do you reject that statement?
Yeah, I think that is not so. There are a lot of solutions that were offered. In fact, we're in the process of compiling the report, and the solutions list is so large. At the moment, it is running, I think, 4 or 5 pages, and we're trying to bring it down. So there are a lot of solutions that were offered during the course of the 2 days.
Jacquee, what was your thinking? When you watched it, did you think it was? What did you think of the whole Dialogue Fiji that when it was happening?
I thought, well, to be honest, at first, when watching it, I was actually impressed that you were able to get all of them into the same room to sit next to each other and to address issues that the country is facing right now. That alone is a huge feat. And then to have the private sector there, to have all the other decision makers within the country there, really great. Listening to them at the same time, it's almost like some of them were on a political campaign.
It seemed that way.
That
was the feedback some had, eh?
Yeah. It felt more like they were already on a political campaign instead of actually providing the country with the solutions that are needed, that the people are asking for. Engaging from the response on social media, a number of people have been saying, why are they discussing the past? Why are they going at each other? Why are they blaming previous governments? Why can't they just tell us what they're going to do for us here now and moving forward?
Your quick take on that, Nilesh.
Yeah, I mean, there were 3 questions that had been posed to the panelists of the third panel, and this was given to them almost a week in advance. And a key question was the way forward. And I think the moderator also, tried to bring the conversation to that. And to be fair on the panelists, I think they did put across recommendations, their vision for the future, what needs to be done. And it's all going to be captured in the report that we're going to be releasing by tomorrow.
So the report's going to be made public?
Yes, it will be.
Okay.
It's bound to happen though. Before we go to break, it's bound to happen though when you have, some of them are former bureaucrats, technocrats, economists. It's bound to happen, and politicians, and in the past or still current. So it's bound to happen that there'll be politics. You cannot hide it. I mean, you said economics has been a political football. It is a political football everywhere in the world.
I mean, that was to be expected because these are guys that have political agendas. They are political players. And so they were, of course, expected to exploit the platform to advance agendas. But I think if you look at how most of the discussion went, I think it was pretty focused on the economy. There were a lot of facts and figures also that were advanced by the panelists. And it was a very
number of interesting facts and figures, I agree.
Yeah, so that panel discussion was to end in 105 minutes, and it went for about 180 minutes. So it became a 3-hour marathon, but it was just so interesting. And nobody complained. Even in the room, people were very fixated on the discussion.
I think it could have gone on for half a day. Eh?
Yeah.
But talking about exploiting the platform, there was a lot of talk about one man in particular, Ayaz Said Qayyum, the former Attorney General and Minister for Economy. We'll discuss his presence and other issues from the last week's economic dialogue, National Economic Dialogue, after the break. Welcome back. You're watching The Brunch on My TV. In studio with us this morning is Nilesh Lal, the Executive Director for Dialogue Fiji. We're discussing the discussions and outcomes and criticism raised about the recently concluded State of the Fijian Economy Dialogue that was held in Suva last week. So Nilesh, how did you get everyone together?
Well, it took a lot of work behind the scenes. It wasn't easy at all. But I think over the years we've built trust amongst various stakeholders, and that was quite instrumental there. But we really pursued some of those people, and it took a lot of work. I think around 3 weeks of behind the scenes work to get everybody that we wanted in the room.
I say that because, that 16 years, when we tried to get
all of them in the same
room, we couldn't. Well, one of the biggest block was Ayah Said Kayu. He would say, I will not get in the room with Narumbe who's got only 1% of the vote. Why am I giving him a platform? So why was he given a platform?
Well, I think even his critics and critics of the dialogue would agree that the panel discussion wouldn't have been half as interesting if he wasn't on it. And I
He's
think
the man that commands attention.
Yeah, and I think if you want to be really genuine about creating an inclusive space, you need to invite everybody. I mean, our modus operandi, even during the Fiji Fest time when they were essentially very hostile to us, basically they had this policy of boycotting all of our events, we still continue to invite them. And so that modus operandi has continued. We continue to invite people from across the political spectrum, across various divides that we have in Fiji, whether it's ethnic, political, religious, gender, and so forth. So we stuck to our modus operandi, which is to be inclusive. Also, in as far as Ayaz is concerned, I think it was critical to also have him. Otherwise, I tell you how the discussion would have went. There would have been blame placed on the policies and actions of the former government with nobody to defend it. So we wouldn't have such a robust discussion at all. So these were some of the considerations.
So just to clarify that you did try to do some things like this during the Fiji First government?
Yeah,
and it didn't work.
Yeah, and there's something that I also pointed out to Mr. Sayyid Qayyum, during one of the conversations that we had after the dialogue, that look, we have been inviting you for 10 years and then you finally turned up at one of our events, but of course in very different circumstances for him. But it was a pity, as you know, the former Fiji First government was quite hostile to civil society organizations. In fact, they had this policy of non-cooperation with civil society organizations, which was to an extent also frustrating our work at times. Sometimes they also used to have all these demands, and they would be posing questions to us. Why is that person invited and all of that? And
because we experienced all that ourselves here in the media. Because when we tried to host debates, as I said, he would say, why am I giving a platform or a voice to people like Chowdhury or who were not elected members of parliament?
That's right. Yeah. And as a matter of principle, Dialogue Fiji or any other independent CSO cannot have its events vetoed by government, or we cannot have dictated to us by government or any other stakeholder who to put in the room and whom not to put in the room. So we have sort of remained very steadfast to it.
Yeah, it's we all want to point that out because of what we all experience, but I think it's very important, and I thank Dialogue Fiji for that we don't think of how it was happening in the past. That going forward, we need to have people from different political backgrounds on the same panel, because that's how it's supposed to be.
That's right.
The people in opposition and the people in government, people, even the smaller parties, they need to all have a voice to be able to to give their views and let the people decide on that. But I think there's more, Jacquee, from the statement from
the statement, Rata Tevita also said the hall was filled with politicians and officials. Not villagers, not faith leaders, not the small business owner, just trying to get by. And that the nation itself was not there. Is that a fair hit? And will next year's dialogue look different?
Well, I think there are a number of falsehoods and assumptions, misconceptions in that statement of his. First of all, we always have this very inclusive and open modus operandi of recruiting participants. So there was an online an open facility for people to register. So it was open to everyone. Of course, the venue has got limitations in the number of people that it can accommodate. But to say that it was only filled with politicians and government officials is not correct. In fact, we had a very good mix of people, stakeholders, different economic stakeholders in the room. We had some very prominent business leaders. We had a very wide range of people from the private sector, including small business owners. They were there.
And they were all given platform to speak, or were they in the audience only? Was that part of the panels of the program?
Yeah, I mean everybody was put into breakout groups. There were other sessions that happened beyond the 3 live stream sessions. So a lot of people are basing their view of the dialogue based on what was aired publicly.
Maybe just from that panel.
Yeah. This call out that you said, the registration, you said it was put out online for people to register. Did it go through any other channels apart from just being available online?
Well, it was predominantly available online, and it was advertised mostly through our social media.
Right.
But then we also sent invites out to selected stakeholders.
Yeah.
And we had a very good mix. I mean, if you look at the people that were in the room, I think it was a very good mix. Also, in as far as the perspectives of ordinary people were concerned, this was also incorporated. There was a whole segment dedicated to citizens' economic perspectives. So our team went around, garnered perspectives of people, and I think Fiji Village was one of those media organizations that also covered that aspect rather well. So those perspectives of ordinary Fijians weren't missed.
Okay.
Of course, I think critics need to also realize that we cannot be discussing everything under the sun in 2 days. That's just not possible. So we also needed to be focused. As I said, the key thing was the macroeconomic realities.
That was your goal. So let's good chance. I think we've got Vani on now. We can see on the screen. Yes, Yandra again, Vani, and you've been listening to the discussions. Basically, can we get your take? You've now heard from Nilesh, who you know well, operating in the same kind of space, and then the criticisms from high chiefs, from the government ministers, that it was almost in some ways like government hit job, hitting the government. So I just wanted to take your perspective about what happened and what you think was some of the positives and negatives, if you saw anything that way. Vani?
I thought maybe just to say.
Okay, Vani's still having technical issues at
Can you
the
hear
moment.
me?
So, Vani, okay.
Me now, Stan.
Yeah, okay. Okay, sorry. We got you back on, Vani. Let's go.
All right. So I thought it was a good opportunity from all those. I think that's what at the heart of what Dialogue Fiji is to create for people from different issues to come and speak about it directly to each other. Many times we see them talking, right? But I'm sure that those from F was quite refreshing to other directly. It would have benefited from a high-level panel.
Okay, the gremlins are not on Vani's side
those who
today.
The weather in Suva is really working
against us. Can the technical team please get work again with Vani? We will not give up on Vani today.
Yeah, we'll try
please
and get back to
get on with the streaming. I think the weather is affecting.
The weather is really affecting the network in Suva. Always happens.
Yeah.
So Nilesh, one of the strongest reactions that came. Reactions to the dialogue came from within government itself. Public Works Minister Rofilipe Tuiswa took to social media and suggested the event had effectively become an anti-government monologue, dominated by critics of the coalition. The minister appeared to suggest that many speakers focused heavily on government shortcomings, while paying insufficient attention to global economic pressures and inherited structural challenges. When you saw that, what was your reaction to it, and do you think it was fair criticism?
Well, it looked very familiar to us because we have been subject to this kind of criticisms from government for quite some years. In fact, this looks exactly the same as the kind of criticism that were leveled against us by the former government. So they always used to impute agendas to us, or motives to us, that, oh, we are aligned with the opposition, or certain parties in the opposition, and we are advancing some agenda, or we're trying to undermine government. So this is the kind of allegations that were made against us. And we've seen that actually emerge in a very similar style, which is rather disappointing because this government committed to working with civil society, to facilitating civil society engagements and so forth. I think it was a big part of their election campaign and the promises that they made. The reality is that anybody that is in power will always be subject to critical scrutiny. That's the nature of it, right? So, and one of the things that was quite clear from the facts and figures that were presented, that there are many concerns with the fiscal policy making of this country. And this was backed up with evidence. Right? Of course, the various people that presented took into account the impact of global headwinds, like for instance the fuel crisis, Strait of Hormuz crisis, and other global headwinds that are affecting the Fijian economy. But what we cannot ignore is the fact that government spending has gone through the roof. And the bulk of this is operating expenditure, which is doing nothing to increase the productive capacity of the economy.
What you're saying, it's more like how government's running its business, how the salaries it's paying, the...
Precisely. Civil service
as opposed to capital expenditure on the infrastructure. They're saying that it's more money going towards that.
Precisely. So the government has greatly expanded its operating expenditure. It now constitutes more than 80% of the entire expenditure of government. And that was around 40% 10 years ago. So a lot more money was being invested into capital expenditure, and this was expenditure that was increasing the productive capacity of the economy, and that's not happening. And that shift has come about largely in the last couple of years, and it's quite clear from the trend. So you can't dispute that, and it's important that these things are highlighted so that we can get policy making in the right direction.
Yeah, Nilesh, sorry, before we go to break, very quickly I wanted to ask. I mean, you did have Manuel Kamkamida, the two former deputy PMs there, Biman Prasad, Professor Biman Prasad, but they're no longer in cabinet. Would have been good to get someone who's actually sitting in the current cabinet to have been there. Did you put an invitation out there?
Yeah, I mean, the finance minister, current finance minister, was invited. We pursued him for quite some time, and he wasn't available. So he was to open the event, and but he sent an apology saying that he wasn't available, that they had consultations happening the entire week, and so there was no way. In fact, we had...
Anyone else could have been from government? Because, I mean, I really felt that they should have been there to defend themselves more than just, Biman and
So apart from the finance minister, the trade minister was also invited, and he was also unavailable.
Oh, okay, that's kind of familiar sometimes.
opportunity.
But government, when you are invited, you need to turn up.
Show up to it.
Show up and defend your policies.
Yes.
And the growth. I mean, now I see there's a lot of defense coming, but it's coming after the fact.
Coming after the fact,
in the
when
same
it could have been
platform.
done
But
during.
we'll try and get government to respond, come on the show, and defend some of that. But we head to the break now, and don't go anywhere. We'll be back. Welcome back. You're watching The Brunch on My TV. We're with Dialogue Fiji Executive Director, Mr. Nilesh Lal, talking about that state of the Fijian economy. Yeah, state of the Fijian Economy Dialogue that caught everyone's attention. A lot of discussion now around it. Now, I know we discussed it a bit, but I really want you to respond directly to the statement from the Turangambalan at Tunayao, Soni Vunokolau, and Tuilau, Ratu Tevita Mara. He said, among those invited to address the forum was the former Attorney General Ayah Said Kayum, a man who stands before the court on serious charges. To hand such a man a platform to lecture the nation on its economy is not merely poor judgment, it is an affront to every Fijian who is paying the price of his record. For this is the very hand that built the mess we are still digging ourselves out of. A flawed constitution, mismanaging the country, leaving the country under a debt of more than 10 billion, a debt now carried by every Fijian and by our children and theirs. To sit the author of our troubles before us as the authority on the Kiwa does not lend this dialogue credibility. It makes a mockery of it. The organizers owe the nation a plain answer. Why was such a man given a platform at all? That's directly from the statement. Your response.
Well, I think it's very politically motivated. I mean, it looks very political in nature, the way the statement has been framed. That, of course, is a political opinion of Ratumara. But, well, if you look at it, Ayaz Sayed Kayum controlled the economy, or he ran the economy for more than a decade. We cannot have a serious discussion on the state of the economy without involving him. And as I mentioned earlier, we did not want a one-sided affair where people would be heaping blame on the past government and with nobody to defend from that administration. The other thing, in as far as our modus operandi is concerned, we make these decisions based on a systematic analysis of the matter. And we do not get in those people that somebody else approves of. So we don't have that kind of an ideological screening as well to see, okay, their ideologies align with us, so we'll have them. So what we do is create an inclusive and an open forum, and there's opportunities for everybody. So Ratumara, for instance, could have walked in and he could have questioned Mr. Sayed Kayum on the kind of things that he alleges that has been the handiwork of the former economy minister. And so that is the kind of platform that we wanted to create, a forum where everybody could come in and be able to voice their opinions and to give their take of something as important as the economy.
You understand, though, you would appreciate, though, that people do have strong feelings about what happened, over the last 16 years. And your position is that we need to move from that.
Of course we do. People also have strong opinions about the current government's policies, for instance. So, as I've said, that if you want to have a robust discussion, you need to have everybody at the table. And you cannot be selective about who to get in, and then you sort of have a monologue blaming the previous government, or we have a monologue blaming the current government. And that is precisely the kind of dynamics or kind of a situation that we sought to avoid by having everybody in.
Yeah, so robust debate is needed. Then third time lucky, hopefully now with Vani. Now we'll have an audio. Vani?
Yeah, Stan, can you hear me?
I hear you
Loud
perfectly,
and clear,
loud and clear.
Vani.
So Vani, you've been listening to the discussions, and I'll just get your take about what you think. You've heard the criticisms. You saw what happened. What do you think of the whole process?
Yeah, I'd like to congratulate Dialogue Fiji. People may not like who they see on the panel, but that's what's at the heart of what Dialogue Fiji is. is to bring together people from different sides and get them to talk to each other directly. And this time about the economy, something that's a pretty critical issue for us at this time. And I agree that, Mr. Kayyum should have been there. And I want to congratulate Dialogue Fiji for, being successful in bringing all of them to the table. And, allowing people the opportunity to hear from them, to defend their, economic approaches. It may not be welcomed by some who have been perhaps impacted by these policies, but we need to hear why they, why they came up with those approaches, and why they think that there are perhaps benefits. What I would have liked to perhaps seen a bit more of is a panel of community leaders talking about the impacts of these various economic policies on their lives, on their communities. But otherwise, congrats to the team.
Vani, what about the criticism of it being a talk fest and not many solutions was given? I mean, what did you see from the outcomes?
Well, I think that what happens at Dialogue Fiji is usually a dialogue. That's what dialogue was created. Dialogue. There was a time in our nation that people were not talking to each other directly. They were talking either through social media or mainstream media. That's why Dialogue Fiji was established. Sorry, I'm just giving you a bit of the background because I used to work at Dialogue Fiji.
Yeah, thank you. And Jacquee, that's maybe that's part of the return to democracy that we're talking about. People need to get used of having someone they don't like at the table and having that debate.
Very refreshing.
And it's a culture that we need to reintroduce. I mean, reintroduce and embrace as a country that we can. Although we may not like, or people may not like Ayasad Kayyum, or they may not like Narumbe, or they may not like Chowdhury, or they may not like Biman, they need to be able to listen to their arguments.
They do.
I think we've kind of lost a bit of that, right?
Yeah.
A very fundamental aspect of our democracy is creating this marketplace of competing ideas, right? And that is precisely what we mean by an inclusive and open dialogue on any issue. Now, if we just have people that we like, or the people with views that resonate with ours, what we're creating is an echo chamber, not a dialogue space. So I think, people that are calling it a talk fest, as Vani has very aptly put, the organization is all about promoting dialogue, and dialogue needs to happen between people that you don't agree with, mostly. I mean, otherwise you're just reinforcing your views and all of that, and that provides little value to society.
After the event, were you able to speak with any of the panelists? How did they feel about the event? Did they enjoy being on the panel? Did they enjoy being in the same room with everyone? Did they enjoy the discussions?
Were they unhappy that there were some other people on the panel?
Were they unhappy that there were people seated beside them?
No, I don't think so. I think it was communicated to them well in advance, so they knew who was going to be on the panel with them. In fact, we grouped them together. We created these mailing groups so that they were able to communicate with fellow panelists, with the moderators in that group as well. So there was this kind of communication mechanism that even was happening before the panel discussions took place. I haven't really had conversations with panelists after the event. I think all we've done is sent out thank you notes and all of that. But we haven't had any adverse reactions from panelists that they were, subjected to any kind of a surprise, or they're not happy with how.
Which is good, right?
Yeah.
Which is
and then I think
which shows the embracing the democratic
precisely.
spirit
And the impartiality of the moderation. I don't think anybody has any issues with that, including the audience that was there. because these were quite politically sensitive, and so we also needed to have,
Yes. So
moderators who could handle such
the key
high
issue
level.
there was really that government needed to have been there.
Yes.
They were invited, they did not turn up. So this comment that seemed to come out that this is well, some of the people on the panel say this is the Fiji's worst economy in 30 years.
Right.
Vani, can I just get you in? What did you think of some of the assessments of the economy being fragile, and what needs to be done? I mean, this issue of the debt is not a new issue. There's been a lot of concern being made about it. So, what did you think of some of the solutions offered?
Well, I wish I was there, but program manager had attended that forum. Well, I would say that we might have to think outside the box a little bit going forward. And that's why I had suggested maybe a community, panel might offer us some fresh insights, ideas. But in 2023, as part of the Fiscal Review Committee, we could see that we would end up here if we didn't do some drastic cutbacks. Yeah, and that I think we're getting to that point now.
Yeah. Jacquee, on some of the comments made by...
So you've said that you hope recommendations from this dialogue genuinely influence the budget, which is coming up on the 26th. So if the Minister for Finance is watching this right now, what are 3 key things from that dialogue, recommendations that you wish he would take into account for the budget?
Well, the first thing that, of course, has to be done as a matter of agency is to correct the government's expenditure mix. So operating expenditure has to be reduced, perhaps drastically as well. The budget deficit also has to be reduced so that we amass a lower volume of debt in the next fiscal year. The other thing that, of course, also needs to happen is to bring in policies that encourage private sector growth, because I think one of the key things that was identified during the discussions was that given the precarious fiscal position of government, it has now got limited capacity to address some of the demands that are coming from the people, for instance, addressing cost of living, and then of course the crisis that we are poised to be heading into. Then of course there's issues about growing the economy at perhaps around 5%. So what we've seen, given the precarious fiscal position of government, it has got limited capacity to be doing all of this. So there has to be policies that encourage private sector growth. There also needs to be policies that encourage economic diversification, because the key things that are working for the Fijian economy right now are tourism and remittances. These are essentially keeping the economy buoyant. But these things are virtually very volatile. They're out of our control.
A lot of risks there that,
of course,
that we need to take on. Did you get to your third one, or was that the second one?
I think that was the second one.
That was the second one.
Yeah. What was the third one?
The third one, of course, would be not increasing taxation, especially when you are in such a situation. There would be a temptation to still grow the revenue.
Not even for the high income earners suggested by Nairobi, the luxury goods?
Well, I think when it comes to indirect taxation, it affects everybody. We could look at direct taxation for people that are earning super salaries. Of course, I think previously there were tax reductions for those that are earning more than 278,000 that happened around 2023. So some of that could possibly be relooked at. But the trend that has been alarming is that as government revenue has grown, owing to things like increase in VAT, tourism earnings and all of that, government expenditure has continued to grow, and this has been operating expenditure.
So revenue up 1.9 billion,
Yep.
debt up 1.95 billion. So it's almost balancing out.
Precisely.
Yes.
Can I bring Vani in? Vani, three things that Nilesh said, from the dialogue that was
he hopes,
recommended
yes.
to be in the budget. You are not part of the dialogue, but what's the three things you'd like to see in the budget?
Well, I, of course, did make a submission to the Constitution Review Commissioners, and we had suggested a cap on operational expenditure,
Yeah.
because we've seen this trend over the successive governments. We were specific about what specifically we apply this cap to. So that's something that we want in the Constitution, because we can't trust politicians to be disciplined. That's what our history is showing to us. And then secondly, for our budget submissions, we've been repeating a few things over the years, talking about disaster and climate resilience now with the Super El Nino on the way, or perhaps already here. We're asking government to look at how community resilience is being fostered. That's one. And we're also looking at, particularly in vulnerable communities, we see an issue of vulnerability is cohesion. So we're asking government as well to look into strengthening community governance through community councils, particularly in informal settlements, or settlements outside of the villages.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very important point. We're talking there about numbers and statistics. There's also, and I saw that it was also discussed, things of social cohesion, national development. Time's caught up on us.
Time has caught up on us.
Nilesh, but very quickly, what's next?
Well, we've got quite a few things on our agenda for this year. The very next event that's coming up is a Youth and Democracy in the Pacific Forum that's going to be happening next week at the Radisson Blue Resort in Nandi. So we've got youths coming from the Pacific region for that. There's also a number of publications that we'd soon be launching. This is on the Constitution. Then we are also working on various toolkits for AI in elections. There's a program that we're running also on increasing women participation in politics, and there's a whole range of activities that we've got planned.
More to look forward to.
More to look forward to. And I like that this civic participation, this is one role I thought that, used to be played effectively in the past by the Citizens Constitutional Forum, CCF. At one time played a very critical role, and I'm glad that groups like Dialogue Fiji, of course, you're stepping in and creating these spaces.
Yeah.
Because politically, I don't think those spaces have automatically formed themselves.
That's right.
And for us in the media, we're creating some with the town halls. But
Discussions.
everyone needs to play a part in creating this vibrant, democratic atmosphere, so to speak, of space. Yeah. And I think people just need to learn to be able to hear other points of views, taking it in and present and making their own mind. In the end of it all, the people will have to decide who they tick or which point of view they support going forward. So thank you, Nilesh, for joining us.
Thank you, Nilesh, for joining us
on the show.
Yes. Well, we'll take a look now at our shot of the day. And this beautifully captured image of a sunset seen through a coconut plantation in Savu was taken by our very own Lusimba Nuve on her way to Rava.
Yeah, you just can't beat the scenery in Savu.
If you have a picture or video other than Rava or anything from Savu featured on the show, please send it to us on the MyTV Facebook page or email brunch@mytvfiji.com.
And very quickly now to our poll results for the question that was up on the MyTV Facebook page.
The question was, we had asked, do you think the government should reduce or remove fuel taxes to cushion the rising cost of fuel? 57% felt that fuel taxes should be reduced. 35% said fuel taxes should be removed entirely, while 7% said not fuel taxes should remain. Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's unpopular with the government's position, but I think government's saying, look, we cannot just remove that income or revenue that the government generates because it's very important to their operations.
Yep.
But some strong opinions there. So our new poll question now, it's
What will be most important to you when deciding your vote in the upcoming general election? Is it A, a clear plan to tackle the economic downturn and create jobs? B, politicians showing stronger transparency and accountability? Or C, a commitment to maintaining national security and law enforcement integrity? And we have a D, reforms to the constitution or regional governance framework.
the team is doing what? This kind of, what's called
Our
multiple
team
choice.
is just getting so
Multiple choice.
excited.
There's no E, all of the above, like.
True stuff. So, let us know what you think by participating in our poll question that is will be pinned up at the top of the MyTV Facebook page towards the end of this show. And you could go into the draw to win a slow cooker from Comfort Home Furnishings.
We'll be announcing the winner every week right here on the show.
There you go, an Anko 3-litre slow cooker. Well, that's all we have time for on the brunch.
Vinaba Levu, and join us again this Friday.
Is it this Friday or next Tuesday?
We'll let you know.
We'll
Stay
let you
tuned,
know,
yeah.
but just stay tuned. Take care. Be safe. Keep warm. If you're traveling in this weather, be safe when driving on the roads. Do not speed during this rainy weather. Do not travel out to sea. Please stay home.
Yeah.
Refrain from heading out to sea at this time.
Please.
Take care. Make wise choices. Stay safe. Practice safe sex. For the brunch, I'm Jacquee Speight.
Mademanda.